Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday. It's time for our check-in. I have my cup of coffee, my Last Supper mug here, a cool gift from Italy that was brought back. More importantly, what's in the cup? It's a very third wave coffee, kind of a fruity, medium-bodied roast. I forget the name of it, but I'm quite enjoying it this morning. Maybe you're enjoying your cup of coffee, Diet Coke, whatever it is that gives you your morning pick-me-up this middle of the week. And I hope this that we are doing is also a bit of a pick-me-up for you as we try to see how through the story of the scriptures, these 66 individual compositions that are put together in this book we call the Bible, teach us more about who God is and how he has revealed himself in history. And as we're going through, we're at an interesting spot in the Old Testament. We're going to move to the book of Judges. This is the book after Joshua. So Joshua is the leader of the people of Israel as they go into the promised land and they go through a series of battles and get settled in the promised land. Judges tells us what happens after that. And we come to Judges chapter 2, verse 10, which for me is one of the saddest verses in all the Bible. This is what it says. After that whole generation had been gathered to their ancestors, another generation grew up who knew neither the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. So the emphasis here is that as time has marched on, the generation that led the people of Israel into the promised land, as they have gotten older, as they have passed away, they've failed to pass on something vitally important. And that is who God is and what he has done. And boy, has he done some things for Israel. As we have seen in the book of Exodus, his deliverance, through Moses' leadership, giving of the law, all of the miracles that happened, crossing the Red Sea, the manna and the quail in the wilderness, guiding them by the pillar of fire and pillar of cloud. In the book of Joshua, which we really didn't spend a lot of time in, we talked about Joshua being strong and courageous, but there's a series of battles in there as the people of Israel go into the promised land. And in those battles, time after time, God intervenes in remarkable ways, even miraculous ways, to allow Israel to take progress into their settling and conquest of the promised land. And so now they're in the land, and in the book of Judges, which we're not going to spend a lot of time in, but just kind of summarize it, the book of Judges is basically a book that's a cycle after cycle after cycle. And here's how the cycle goes. Israel comes to a point of contentment, prosperity, whatever it is, kind of everything's good. And then after that, they become complacent and they begin to look to idols and they turn away from God. And because they turn away from God, God sends an enemy of various places and kinds to come in who kind of disrupts the life of Israel, causes damage, causes conquest, causes all sorts of problems. Israel is overwhelmed and doesn't know what to do. So then they cry out to the Lord and he raises up a judge. The book of Judges are these leaders, these quasi-political military leaders that God raises up to help Israel deal with the Midians or the whoever else, the surrounding countries that have come in and kind of oppressed them. And so they're delivered under the hand of that judge. The judge reigns for a period of time. And then after he passes away, the cycle repeats itself. They get complacent. They turn to idolatry. God judges them. They cry out to God. God raises up a judge to deliver them. They get complacent. They turn to idolatry. They cry out to God. God sends a judge to deliver them. He rules. They get complacent. They turn to idolatry. God judges that through a foreign nation and so on and so forth. The whole book is just a cycle of that. And it introduces us to these judges who God raises up in particular times to help Israel overcome these surrounding people that are oppressing them. But the reason for that cycle is right here in this verse. The reason that the book of Judges is this cyclical thing, and the judges go from okay to bad to really bad over the course. You even see the judges kind of slipping into more idolatry and the like. The reason for that is this verse, Judges 2:10. After that whole generation had been gathered to their ancestors, another generation grew up who knew neither the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. The most important thing that could have been passed down from generation to generation was who God is and what he has done. But in the people of God, in the people of Israel, they failed to do that, and they reaped the consequences of it. It is quite remarkable. And it is quite sad to think all that God had done for Israel, the people just kind of shrugged off and forgot about and went about their business as if God didn't matter. It is remarkable that that would happen. And if we're not careful, we can have that happen too, because what we see in here is that faith in God is not secondhand. I can't live off the faith of somebody else. I can't even live off the faith of my parents. My parents, grandparents, however many generations go back, may have been involved in church. Denise particularly can talk about her grandfather was at one point the oldest living graduate of one of our seminaries, died at 106 years old. Her father was a pastor in Tampa for a long time, and now she is in this world of church world ministering here at our church with the kids and the different things she does there. She has this legacy, but it's not about who her dad was or who her grandfather was. It wasn't for Israel about who Joshua was or who Moses was or who anybody else was in their past. It was about their personal relationship with the God who had delivered them and had been active in their past and had done so many things for them and through them that they just took it for granted, and in taking it for granted started this horrible cycle. See, we live in a culture that is overflowing, we might say, with information. And the information that we have at our fingertips, on a cell phone, at a laptop, computer, a tablet, all of the myriad amounts of data that we get. We have so much information, but I am afraid as a pastor sometimes we're lacking formation. Actually, that's not true. We don't lack formation, we lack spiritual formation because of all the information we're overwhelmed with. It's easy to let that form us. It's easy to let that shape us into something instead of who God is and what He has revealed about Himself that we can get through His Word, through relationships with our parents and grandparents and other believers. We're not formed increasingly into the image of God. We're formed or deformed spiritually by all of this other stuff. And Israel was the same way. They had this rich history of who God was and what He had done for them, but they weren't formed by that. They took it for granted and were formed or deformed by all of the other cultures, all of the false worship around them that led them into this cycle. And if we're not careful, it can happen to us. You see, it's possible to know a lot about God, but that's not enough. Just knowing about God isn't enough. That's why I've said at times, we have in church world, for a while there was a program called Sunday School, and a lot of churches still do that. Or we have groups that we call Bible study, and the emphasis on school and study is information, the imparting of information that somehow in those groups or in those programs, we're going to give you more information. But the problem isn't information about God. The problem is, do we have a relationship with God? You can have all the information in the world. You can know all about God without knowing Him. The people of Israel had a rich history of His activity and maybe even stories they could retell. But those stories hasn't reached down deep into their lives and hearts and affected who they were. That's why they were so quick to abandon the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Joshua, and all the rest for this idol or that idol and start this downward spiral to idolatry and judgment from God. We need to know that all of the information that we have at our disposal, we have, and even biblical information, we have so much access to the text of the scriptures through apps and the like. We have so much, an abundance of access to sermons and Christian books and who knows what else, podcasts and like, so much that we could have at our fingertips. We have so much information. The issue is not what do we know about God, it's do we know God personally, and is He forming us increasingly into His image? That is what we try to do here through our church. That's why we get together. I don't get up and speak, and we don't have our Bible study groups just to help you get more information, as if when you get to heaven, there's a quiz you have to pass, and you need to make a certain grade to get in. No, that is not at all what it is. We are part of the people of God, and He is active in this world, and He is about calling us to Himself and us not knowing about him, but knowing him personally and allowing his character to be formed in us, the character of Christ to be formed in us, the kingdom of God to come on earth as it is in heaven, as we live out our relationship with him. And we don't want to be guilty of the same things that the Israelites and other generations have had. All of this information, all of this history that we neglect, thinking we can ride on the coattails of the previous generation. No, it's who God is for us today. How do we know him? How do we learn about him? How do we serve him? How does what we know impact how we live? Even as we talked about Sunday, it's not about are we going through the religious motions. It's not about our religious services and studies. Is that making any difference in our day-to-day life? Because if it's not, we're missing the point. Yes, we're full of information, but we're not being transformed. We're not transformed by the power of the gospel of Christ, which is the point of everything we do. That's why we encourage you to come and join us. Not because there's things you don't know we want to teach you, but because there is a God who desires to know you intimately and has revealed himself through the scriptures and fully and finally through Jesus, and wants to come and transform your life so that you can be a part of his eternal kingdom and see his kingdom come, his will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And when we get together, that's what we try to do. When we talk to each other, when we build relationships in a church, we are trying to grow together to become this people of God that has made a positive difference in our community and the world. We want you to be a part of that. We'd love you to join us Sundays 9 a.m. Thanks for joining us on Wednesdays as we're doing this sort of brief look at, and this time at the total story of the scripture. And I hope as we do it, you're being reminded of just how good God is, that he would reveal himself to us, call us to himself, and begin to transform in us, build in us, form in us the character of his son Jesus. Like I said, Sundays 9 o'clock. Hope you can be here. I'm going to go finish my cup of coffee, and then we have the rest of this day. I'm sure you have lots of things on your schedule and agenda, so I'll let you get back to it as I get back to mine. Thanks, as always, for spending a few minutes with me. Hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday.